Miller from the Center for Urban and Regional Analysis here at The Ohio State University. And I'm really happy to welcome you to this special event where we're going to talk about the LinkUS initiative, which promises more COTA, more sidewalks, and more opportunity, as the slide here says. I want to say this event is co-sponsored by CURA and also by the City Regional Planning Student Association. So thank you all for being today. Before I introduce the panel, I just want to kind of give you my own take on why I'm a supporter of the LinkUS initiative. And so I've been working with this initiative for a number of years now, and I really feel like it's a good plan and a good time for Central Ohio to do this. We know that Central Ohio is not really on a good path for the future. You know, as we have heard, Central Ohio is going to grow by 1 million people by the mid-21st century. The current path we're on leaves us trapped in a car-dominated mobility monoculture. And this mobility monoculture is oversaturated, inflexible, inefficient, inequitable, and a fragile system that's easily disrupted, even by small events such as a single vehicle crash. The root of the problem in a mobility monoculture is that it only offers one choice, driving. This does not work for many people based on age, ability, and also the high cost of automobile ownership. It also doesn't scale well with growth. And it fails us almost every single day. Just listen to daily traffic reports. These are like cries for help from a suffering system that can't take it anymore. If we want our system to be more sustainable, more equitable, and resilient, we need to move towards a mobility polyculture with a wider range of choices. Cars have their place in this polyculture, but we need to make room and investment so other choices such as walking, biking, and public transit have the ability to flourish and attract riders. A mobility polyculture can handle growth better. It's more flexible, efficient, equitable, and resilient to disruption. It also fosters healthier, safer, and environmental friendly mobility and land use. LinkUS, in my opinion, is an excellent start on a path towards a mobility polyculture in Central Ohio. Bus rapid transit is a good solution for Central Ohio, given our population density. I am also a fan of BRT in general, because you get a lot of high quality public transit for your money. And this is why so many cities around the United States and elsewhere in the world are currently investing in BRT. But wait, there's more. The combination of BRT with system-wide investments, sidewalk and bike trail improvements, and mobility hubs is thoughtful and well-reasoned, and positions the LinkUS initiative well for success. I'm also encouraged by the way that this initiative has unfolded. LinkUS is being developed and planned in cooperation between COTA, the City of Columbus, and the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. There have been high levels of community engagement in this initiative going back years, and the development of the LinkUS initiative with other crucial initiatives such as zoning reform and action plans on affordable housing and the climate crisis means that we're thinking systematically and holistically about this problem. So I'm really encouraged by the way the LinkUS initiative has unfolded. So now I'm going to turn it over to our panel and some introductions. Charles Newman is a public relations specialist for the City of Columbus, Department of Public Service. In this role, Charles helps to lead the department's communication and community engagement efforts, providing residents with valuable insights into the everyday services offered by the department. Kim Sharp has served as a long-range planner and planning director for 2 cities and is now the senior director of development for the Central Ohio Transit Authority, or COTA. She helps to lead a coalition of COTA, Morpsey, Franklin County, I should have mentioned county, apologies, and the City of Columbus, working together to operationalize years of planning in Central Ohio, in which a more robust and holistic transit system for this growing region is a priority. Kim received her Bachelor's of Science degree in architecture from the Ohio State University. And finally, Elliot Lewis, principal planner for the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, is part of the team responsible for maintaining Morpsey's short-range transportation planning program, evaluating projects for federal funding awards, and collaborating with other agencies to advance multimodal solutions in the region, including leading planning for the new transit supportive infrastructure. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kim first. Kim.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Does this work? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having us. We're really excited about LinkUS. If you want a website, I don't think it's listed on here later, you can look at linkuscolumbus.com, and that actually has a lot of great background information. And we say link us because this is really about us linking each other together. We do have an electronic sign-in. If you'd like to sign in, you will be sent future information, including our electronic newsletter, which is great to stay on top of what are we doing next as we work together. So before we jump into what are the components of LinkUS, I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about COTA's relationship with Ohio State University, which is a really important one. I know we have some people online, so at the end of these slides, I'm going to take just a second to give you a chance to either ask questions or give your thoughts when we do that. So I want to note that we do connect OSU to Central Ohio in many ways. There are many COTA lines that go right through here, by here, and we coordinate very closely with CABs on where people make transfers and how they make transfers. We also coordinate closely with Ohio State's planning and real estate office. And that coordination is really important because the student body of Ohio State and the faculty and staff are very important to Central Ohio and important COTA customers. And I do want to note, I think people have asked, how do we get to the airport? You get to the airport on line 7, and you get to line 7 by going down any of the lines that go down High Street, and you change at Long and Gay to line 7, and line 7 runs every half an hour during the week and every hour on the weekends. And you can make plans. I think you have it on here. Sorry. When you look at either Google Maps, and I'm going to talk about the transit app in just a second, you put in there the airport and it'll tell you exactly how to get there and which lines. And you know that your ID, your Buck ID card, gets you free COTA service. I think everybody knows that, but if you don't, please understand that. It's important for you to know that you can get on any COTA bus at any time and take it to where you need to go. And if you were staying in Columbus over the break, over the summer, you could purchase a summer pass at a really reasonable rate. And we also want to note that faculty and staff also get a discount card. So please feel free to take advantage of that and do not need to pay your parking pass if you can get away from that. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that out loud, am I? But take advantage of this if you want to. It's a great opportunity to just make it easier to get around if you want. This is the Google Map. If you download the transit app, if you don't have a Buck ID or a pass, it's a really easy way to get a digital pass. And when you step on the bus, you just beep, beep as you get on. How many people have been to other cities and you download either their app or another app and you just do everything online and you get around? Yeah, makes it really easy, doesn't it? So this is how you do it in Columbus with COTA is the transit app. And transit app is actually applicable to lots of other cities. It tells you when the next bus is coming, wherever you are. So it's a great app to have on your phone. So those are just logistics about how COTA and OSU interact at a very high level. We do offer travel training and first-year success sessions. We want to make sure that students can understand how easy it is. There are a lot of students from all over the world. There's also students from rural communities who have never ridden public transit before. We are happy to help everyone figure out how to use the system. So now we're going to go and when we talk about LinkUS, what do we mean by LinkUS? So we're going to talk about, oh, sorry. Do I want to mention these? When we talk about LinkUS, we're talking about primarily the first main ingredient is more COTA. We know we need longer hours, more frequency, more lines. We know, we get it. Well, the LinkUS package includes 45% more COTA service, as well as 500 plus miles of sidewalks, trails, and bikeways, as well as more opportunity, meaning what is being built around the transit system. We're going to talk about all of that today. So, did I go too fast? How will funds be used? So we'll get to in a second, but what we are talking about is there will be a levy on the ballot this fall for COTA that will go towards this more holistic, more frequent system. And that ballot is for everybody in the COTA service area. So that's 17 cities, many villages, and townships. And the COTA service area is primarily all of Franklin County and slivers of 4 other counties that the city boundary goes into: Union, Delaware, Licking, and Fairfield counties. So they will all see that on their ballot on November 5th. So when we talk about money, right now COTA operates on a 0.5% sales tax. And for comparison, just so you can understand, right now, Cleveland Transit operates on 1% sales tax, and Cincinnati sort of works on 0.8% sales tax. So we have the least amount and we are the growing region. Therefore, that is why we're going to ask for another 0.5% to get the full 1%. And with that full 1%, we were able to develop a financial model for those in the School of Real Estate. You're going to love this. A financial model, a 30-year outlook that with those additional revenues, what could we build and run and operate to have a much better system? So with that, we're going to talk about what those ingredients are, but we're talking about $800 million in federal funding and billions of dollars in local sales tax revenues towards a more holistic transit system. And that's a 0.5% sales tax. I'm going to stop here and see if there's some questions or some thoughts about this before I go to the next slide. Okay. So with that, the financial model is showing by 2030, our goal is to have 3 rapid transit corridors built, 83 community and neighborhood projects that include some of those sidewalks and bikeways and other things, 150 new miles of sidewalks and bikeways. We're going to talk about those other projects. So it's just more things being built. Here's an example, an illustration that's drawn over top of Olentangy River Road. How many have driven along Olentangy River Road, which is essentially a 6-lane highway through town, right? So what you're seeing is within that right-of-way, you're seeing a much more robust bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, much better sidewalks, a bus-only lane, a center bus rapid transit line. But what's even more important, these cool crosswalks, is see that 4-story building right there? That's probably a 1-story drive-through right now with a huge parking lot. That is also a main ingredient in making this whole system work, is what we build around transit. So that's part of those community projects, is more development. So we're going to talk about this transit vision. What you see in the map in very light pink lines are our existing 38 lines, 3,000 stops that run approximately 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. We know it needs to go to 1 a.m. We're working on that. But what you're going to see right now in darker gray, these are the lines we know need to be eventually 24/7. And at a minimum, they've got to be more frequent. We really don't want to have lines that run every 60 minutes. That doesn't help the community get around. We know it needs to be every 30 minutes, every 15 minutes. It makes a big difference. And eventually there's a system that needs to run 24/7 because we have plenty of job centers where there's third shift. People get off at 2, 3 in the morning. They need to get home. What popped up now are the 3 bus rapid transit lines that are in design. So West Broad is working its way towards 90% design. East Main towards 60% design, Northwest Corridor is around 10% design. And we are collaborating very closely with Ohio State University, especially on the Northwest Corridor stops. Hi, Charles. What you see popping up in light blue now, or teal, are 3 corridors in which we've been awarded dollars from Ohio Department of Transportation to analyze what type of corridor should these be. Should they be a type of rapid transit corridor or definitely frequent lines, et cetera? What does this mean? Which is fantastic because the Department of Transportation is realizing that transit is an important ingredient in getting people around. And what you've seen popped up now in green, these are the areas in which MORPS's Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is an every other year deep dive into what all transportation projects in the Central Ohio region make sense for our whole community. These have been analyzed with the data saying, these are some pretty hot job and housing centers. You need to connect people faster and more frequent. Put these on your list of corridors to analyze. Therefore, that's the system we're looking at. Better basic lines and definitely more frequent corridors. That plus COTA plus zones. Have anyone used COTA plus in Central Ohio? There's 3 existing zones. Good. 1 in Grove City, 1 in Westerville, 1 in Southside. And it's essentially an Uber ran by COTA in a zone. And there's an app for that. It gets you around. It's actually extremely reasonable. And the financial model is showing 8 more of those zones. And that's really a first mile, last mile assist and really getting people to where they need to go when they get off of a transit station. So the package is better existing service, more COTA plus zones, newer improved lines, those dark gray that popped out, 5 rapid transit corridors together equal 45% more service. So to go into what we mean by bus rapid transit, I'm going to turn it over to Charles to talk about what makes it rapid and what makes it fun.
Right, check 1, 2. Gonna on the virtual world. All righty. Charles Newman with the Department of Public Service with the City of Columbus. And so when we talk about this, all the great stuff, BRT, bus rapid transit, what makes it fast is that what we've done essentially is put the subway and light rail and all of those things on rubber wheels, because we realized to build a subway system in Columbus may cause some disruption. I don't know how we would go underground without disrupting, but this is what it is. So BRT, the rapid transit, is going to kind of give that subway feel that anybody ever been in New York, went to the subway station, is no, never. Oh my God, you guys got to live. Oh, okay. You scared me for a little bit. Go there first, then come back. But the stations, as we see it, is much safer. Basically, what it incorporates is those red lines, pinkish or salmon color, are dedicated bus lanes. This is how buses are going to be able to travel at a faster rate, because the normal traditional COTA line now has to stop at each stop, which, about a block or 2 blocks, but it also has to compete with all the other cars on the road. So if there's a car going slow or a car in the lane, they can't get you. Bus rapid transit is going to give that dedicated lane to get there. And so these stations are going to also come with some added value. If you look here, there's going to be walkways, and what we have is what we call platform loading. Basically what it does is that you're going to be able to get in the middle of the street, get on the bus. It's going to make it quicker than having to cross the street, having to get off the bus, have to do all those things. There's going to be kiosks there where you can purchase your ticket before the bus gets there. There's going to be speakers, all of these things that are going to make it accessible and easier to get on the bus, so that way we can shorten that. What normally when you get on the bus, you got to wait for the person to pay and all of those things. But with that, and so we get here, this is kind of what the West Broad would look like. We have accessible ways for folks with ADA compliance to get there. They're going to be heated. So the cool thing about this, you can't see it, but that sidewalk right there in the wintertime is going to have heated. It's going to be able to melt snow and things like that, and the maintenance. So that way we can make this experience not only a better one for people getting on the bus, but also a better one for all the folks that are around it. So when we look at a corridor, the West Broad corridor is an example of what we're building. And as you can see, everything on here and everything about LinkUS is intentional. It's about getting people to opportunities. So what we did was, when we looked at the corridors, where are the places within our city currently right now that people need to get to? So the first one, if you look at West Broad, this is imagine out all the way west, going like Perry Township, getting you to that downtown corridor, which now can take easily 30 to 40 minutes on a good day. Add snow, add rain, add traffic, it's going to be better. And so what we've done was we've designed a system to get people where they are. We know that there are people out here on this West Corridor, far west, who want to be able to get to good jobs, who want to be able to get to the downtown amenities, who want to be able to see a show on the weekends, but don't have a vehicle, don't have a car to make it easy. And I think for this, the mindset is, don't take for granted that everyone has access to a vehicle, but everybody should have access to all the great things for our city. So these points of interest to get you here. The West Broad corridor is about 9.3 miles. It connects to 85,000 jobs. It's going to get you there. We look at the East Main corridor. This is on the other side. It's starting just kind of east of Reynoldsburg, coming down Main Street. So when you look at that, on the opposite side of that are going to be great things like Nationwide Children's Hospital. So this right here gets someone who lives out here who still needs the services that Nationwide offers, but now it's about an hour drive. I've got 5 kids. A 15-minute drive to the doctor is horrible. Imagine an hour drive. But it's about getting people to those essential cares in a much faster way. And so 13.6 miles of dedicated, BRT is going to get there, going through Whitehall, different places, Bexley. And so it's a regional concept. And then the last, but the largest of our corridors is the Northwest. This is such a big corridor that is actually broken into 3 phases. But if you look at this, it's 8.5 miles, approximately about $188 million in cost. But look at this, 30% of all jobs in Franklin County are in this area. And then 50% of the population growth by 2050 is expected to be over here. You all know this, or you should know this, because Ohio State fits into this corridor, and so when you think about the jobs as the university grows, as population grows, people move where they work at, or they want to live where they work at. They want to be able to get to where they work at. But for those people, 50% of the population growth, all 50% of those folks that are going to live here hopefully don't have a car. And then outside of it that's just 50%. there's still a 50% that needs to get to a job that's at Ohio State. And most people look at this number, but I look at the number not seen. And that's the 50% of people who may never have had opportunity to get here for the good job. Now they will. And so when you look at it, phase 1 is 8.5 miles, phase 2 is 6 miles, phase 3 is 4.6 miles. And so, like I said, it's our largest, broken up in phases. And so when you look at phase 1, it's going down from Goodale all the way up to Bethel. We look at all these things, the University Village. This is going to be a great addition to not only the campus area, but like I said, all of those people who are living and wanting to be a part of the opportunity right here at The Ohio State University. So we look at Northwest by number 5 of Columbus' largest sports entertainment venues. I'm sure you know where those are. If you don't, just look around. 30% of all jobs in Franklin County are in this 106 plus acres of near-term redevelopment potential. 3 of Central Ohio's largest employment hubs are right here. 206,000 jobs served, including downtown Columbus, and then 4 million plus annual visitors to Central Ohio. And this is just this corridor. So as you can see, this is an essential part of what we're doing. And so I'm going to pass it on to Elliot, who's going to talk about my favorite part, sidewalks.
Thank you, Charles. Did you take a breath at all during that? Okay, so we don't call LinkUS a transit plan. It is a mobility initiative. I like what Dr. Miller said. We want to create a polyculture of mobility options. And one of those is everything that links you between the transit stop and your origin or destination. So who's ridden a bus in the last year? Could be COTA, could be cabs. Awesome. Did your trip start right at the transit stop? No, you had to walk there. You had to roll there. You had to bike there, something. Every transit trip begins and ends as a pedestrian. And so we want to find different solutions to be able to complement a lot of these transit investments. So just starting at some of those BRT corridor stations, some would have what are these micro mobility hubs. So think of your bike share, Kogo. Think of all the different scooter options that are out there, as well as places to charge your e-bike if you have an e-bike, or just places to lock up your regular bike. And have some little maintenance, a little facility there as well. Really things to help facilitate getting you from that BRT station to wherever you need to go, if those are the options that you would like to use. But going out further, it's great if you have a micromobility hub, but if you don't have a safe bike facility, a safe sidewalk to get you from point A to point B, it's not worth it. And frankly, the whole system falls if you don't have safe connections all the way in between everything. And so part of the proposed sales tax increase, about a quarter of that, a little over a quarter of that would be dedicated solely to sidewalks and bike trails, safer crossings, upgraded transit stops within COTA service area. So Kim showed basically Franklin County little portions. That's what we're talking about. And so that amounts to about $60 million annually. To put that in perspective, that's about twice as much as all non-local funds that we have in this area to devote to these types of projects. So this is truly revolutionary. I was talking to one engineer. He's like, yeah, it's gonna be Christmas every day, which is great because we've identified over 500 miles of gaps that could be filled through this program. Well, that's all well and good. But everyone's going to ask, okay, well, when's something going to happen on my street? When do I get a sidewalk? When do I get a trail? What have you? And so we embarked on a way to formalize this program. As this is going to be a living program, we wanted to be able to set up the structure to identify projects and program projects to see what could we actually build through 2030. What are those first fruits of this program going to be? And it's going to look different in different areas. Yes, if you're around this area or in other denser areas, you might need more sidewalk gaps. You might need a shared use path or protected bike lanes. If you're down in Obetz and Groveport in this area, it might look more like larger regional trails that can act as spines to get you to build off from. And so what we did was we set up these committees, because if you, okay, you're in planning, you know about planning. In the public sector, it's all about committees. So of course there has to be a committee to help plan this and help approve these things. But they were made up of every local jurisdiction within COTA service area, at least invited to. We literally sat at tables together, folks from Columbus, folks from Grandview, folks from UA, and be like, hey, what are the things that you have had in plans, you have clamored to, you've wanted to build, that people have been clamoring for years, and you just couldn't get off the ground because there's no good, funding source for it. And we sat in a series of dozens of meetings. But literally we had people from Grandview be like, can we propose projects in Columbus? Can we do that? Yes, because we want this to be a regional thing. You notice a lot of these lines over here. So these blue lines are proposed projects. They don't end at the city of Columbus boundary. No offense. They don't end at Grandview Heights. They're connecting communities. The vast majority of these are multi-jurisdictional projects. It also represents over 150 miles. So we're talking just in the first 5 years of the program, being able to deliver, almost 30% of the gaps that we've identified. And but two things that's really hard to glean from this. One, these projects are so by and large, these are separated facilities, safer facilities, but they're very long spines. Something they can't really capture in here is, these municipalities can now reinvest what they were going to put into these projects into their local sidewalk projects to actually start to build off, the sidewalks and the connections from the spines to the transit too. I know I said there was a second one, but I forgot it, so I'm going to go on. But the vast majority of these, I'd like to point out, would be constructed or under constructed by the end of the decade. So an example of this, these can range from sidewalk bundles all the way up to something like the Heritage Trail. If you've been up in Hilliard, there is a rail trail that goes up to Plain City. Well, there are plans to extend that from Hilliard all the way down to the Arena District. So imagine if you're living up in Hilliard or that area, you can take, a bike ride down to a crew match, or to be able to just go downtown for a concert or something. It's a very large regional significant project that has some pernicious issues when it comes to funding. This will help deliver it and help connect people to 6 different COTA lines, as well as many other regional destinations along the way. Oh, and I guess around here, by the way, let me go back. A couple of other ones would be, if you're up toward north in Clintonville area, North Broadway, being able to actually get under 315 and over to the hospital in UA from the Olentangy Trail, as well as King Avenue. Who's tried to bike on King Avenue? Is it fun? No, it's not fun, right? So this would propose putting in a shared use path, which is a separated facility that, pedestrians, cyclists can use, but also be able to widen the underpass there too, make it better lit, make a safer connection to the Olentangy Trail. It's things like that you're connecting to the Northwest Corridor, BRT corridor, but also larger regional trails as well. So before I move on from this, does anybody have any questions about the sidewalk portion? I only have a few slides after this, but I figured since we're on it. Okay. Well, so we also don't just refer to LinkUS as a mobility initiative. When we think about all the growth that is happening and is going to happen over the next couple of decades, we have to figure out how to actually build as a community in a way that we're not pushing people further out into the fringes of our area, further away from resources, further away from each other, and further into our rural farmland, precious natural resources. How can we actually use this as an investment tool for being able to best capture this growth in the most efficient way that preserves housing and job options at a range of affordabilities? So looking to the north, to our friends up in Cleveland, they have a bus rapid transit-ish line called the Health Line. If you've been up there, it's the one that goes from downtown out to the hospital area and the University Circle. So they invested $200 million. We're, projecting this entire thing being $8 billion, but just taking this $200 million in one line, almost $10 billion in the years that follow in related economic development just along that corridor. That's about a 200-to-1 return on investment. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big force. That's almost 9,000 more housing units. That's 13,000 jobs, all within a corridor together, so people can move here and not have to buy a car and rely on that. It costs about 12 grand to own and maintain a new car in Franklin County every year. That's prohibitive for a lot of people. So how can we be able to capture this growth and facilitate growth that, one, supports the transit use, but also supports a range of affordable housing and a range of options of workforce being able to get around to other areas that might not be in that. So that's and we're also working with a lot of stakeholders in the public sector, nonprofit sector, and the private sector to identify strategies, because COTA doesn't build real estate really or anything like that. That's the purview of each municipality. But we want to get together and say, okay, well, if that is our number right here, almost $200 per $1, how can we help facilitate and promote this smarter form of growth without pushing people away? So what strategies are there for promoting affordable housing, anti-displacement policies, things like that? So those strategies are also a part of it that we can give to our municipal. So just to kind of end it and just to show you a little bit more about what Charles was talking about, what Kim was talking about. I don't know if I can't play from here, but this really just shows what bus rapid transit is. It's not just a regular bus that kneels. It is something that's actually feels, say, light rail without the rail. But I mean, you're good. I was in Salt Lake City earlier or last week and rode the light rail there. Yes, I wish we had light rail. It would be great. We can build 5 of these rapid transit lines for the cost that it costs for one light rail line. And so we can actually invest in the entire region and not just concentrate that on one lucky corridor or unlucky, depending on how what those strategies are employed in developing that corridor is. Yeah, so try it. Well, you can even mute it and I can narrate. Yeah, just mute it. That's bus. Just mute it. Yeah. Okay, maybe I can't narrate. This is the longer form. Oh, okay. Yes, that's it right there. Sorry that I didn't watch the extended cut. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think you just mentioned Indianapolis and Minneapolis. All the Appleses are pretty good at BRT, right? In Indianapolis, they have the red line. They're building the purple line now too. They have funding for the blue line. So they're building out. They're probably about 5 years ahead of where we are, but we're catching up fast. So when you talk about BRT, it's these enhanced stations where you can actually walk up. It's heated, bigger shelters, more room to wait. You pay before you get on. So you don't have to worry about trying to, get your dollar in or wait for someone to do that at the actual terminal, but you can just roll right in. If you've got a bike, if you've got a stroller, if you've got a wheelchair, anything else, if you just don't want to stand or, lift your leg up, you can go right on as it is, multiple door boarding like you would, some rail-based system. It's much larger, longer, and open too. So you're able to stand more comfortably. There are more places it's just easier to navigate when you're in there and to get on and off. A lot of these enhancements in here really make rapid transit, it puts the rapid in rapid transit. You have dedicated lanes. You have transit signal priority. So the bus comes up, signal sees, oh, there's a bus here. We're going to let this light go for the bus and no one else to make sure it keeps going. That's going to speed up speeds by like 40%. So you can basically increase service by 40-50% without having to do anything else, which is really cool. And it also doesn't preclude local buses too. So yeah, there are 13 stations or whatever, but if you've got to go somewhere in between, there's a local bus that can still benefit from those dedicated bus lanes and that infrastructure to speed up regular local service too. So it's fun to look at all of this piecemeal, but really, the stuff that gets me really excited is how all of this is going to work together, that the sum is definitely going to be much greater than the parts, or whatever that saying is. All right, I'm done. So any questions that anybody has for any of us, you guys got to come back up here. Happy to take them. It can be in the weeds as much as possible. We're all planners. We love this. Oh, yeah. Sorry, people online.
Sorry about that. I just had a question generally with the bus rapid transit lines. I'll use the example of West Broad. When the new buses and the new lines, I mean, if it gets voted on, hopefully it does. When they're put in place, what's going to happen with the regular service? Is it completely going to replace it, or are they going to work in conjunction with one another? How's that going to work?
So for West Broad, that's the line 2. That's one of our highest ridership lines. 10, 2 is East Main. Line 10 is West Broad. Thank you. That will continue to some extent at a lesser frequency, and the BRT will be considered the express, and the line 10 will be considered the local. And we've talked to other communities that have opened BRT lines, and they have come to realize it's a matter of phasing out the local line if possible. But it takes time, because right now line 10 stops like every other block. And that's one reason it takes a long time. But they'll both run at first for a while. Is there anything you want to add to that, Zach? Yeah.
Zach Sutherland, I'm with COTA. Yeah, so good question. Our goal is that when we site these stations, that's the highest ridership now and in the future, and the growth happens at these station locations. So, quarter mile around each of these locations. There are spots that we still want to provide that coverage with the underlying service. So come generally, right now the line 10 comes every 15 minutes. The BRT would be coming every 10 minutes. And then this underlying service would serve that coverage. Additionally, we're looking to, as Kim mentioned, expand our COTA Plus reach. Potential new zone could be the Greater Hilltop along the line 10 Broad Street, where it could act as that coverage. So we're just kind of seeing what works best, but we really, this is almost a $4 million project. We want people to use this service and hopefully people would use it over the underlying service. Am I stuck up here now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Harvey.
There's nothing online either.
Well, I think you care about all the cars on the road. And I'll make the statement again, even if we have 1 million more people move here, we can't have 1 million more cars on the road. So I think you care about how to manage congestion on our existing roads. Do you want to add to that?
Well, and hopefully some have seen the graphic that shows, a bus versus, can carry, 40 plus people. And you see the equivalency of the amount of cars on there. We add these 1 million more people. If everybody has a car, we can't extend our roads further out. So trying to think of our transportation more efficiently. When you see a bus rapid transit, you got to think, if there's 60 people in that vehicle, that's 60 cars off the roadway. So while a rapid transit corridor may not benefit someone's specific trip, hopefully it will benefit most and incentivize people to use it more.
And let me give you one more facet of it. We can't keep adding a lane. It's not going to happen, right? And it gets more expensive every year to expand our infrastructure like that. If you look at everything that's going on downtown, that's a couple $2 billion in highway reconstruction, a little bit of widening, but really reconstruction. These 5 bus rapid transit corridors are about what, 1.62 billion just for the corridors. Yeah, not for one. So just imagine basically for the cost of doing just this downtown, just in downtown, the highway construction, we can build out dozens and dozens of miles of high quality, rapid, frequent bus rapid trains that has a much bigger capacity. So basically, we're increasing the capacity of people throughput and not necessarily volume for cars by lane.
And I am not a planner. So my answer is going to be totally opposite. But I would say all of those are great enhancements to infrastructure. But the other side of LinkUS that I never want to get buried is the enhancement to equity that is going to provide to every resident in this city. I work in a department that is responsible in Columbus to try to figure out how to get kids to school safe and good sidewalks and allow them to get on a bike or to walk to the normal store. So all of those elements, this is an enhancement and we need this, but the people capital that's going to change sidewalks. I tell everybody, think about in your car that you drive to be in your management position or the CEO, all of those are great. But think about the amount of people now you will be able to hire because they can get to your job that you have to offer. They can get to Ohio State University. They can get to your place of worship to go see your play because they have this better. So we have enhancements, but we also have enhancements to the equity of just the common everyday person on how they live. You've never ridden a bus, that is great. But think about the amount of people that do ride a bus that now you get to hire, you get to play with, you get to worship with, you get to join in the everyday life. And so that is the other part from a non-planner.
Sidewalks are good. Yeah, I mean, if you've ever tried, it don't even have to be to a transit station. If you've ever just tried to walk in a place that is a goat path, it's just a dirt path. Okay, well, maybe you could do that. Well, then it gets rocky in some places. And then it starts to rain and it's muddy and it's not accessible at all by the definition of ADA, let alone by most people. And so how do we build a system that works for everybody, that makes your actual travel safe, convenient, and honestly dignified? There are thousands of people every day walking that goat path, trying to get to where they're going to go. Do they not deserve anything? Like, just because it would be nice to have something in, some areas to connect to other flashy BRTs, there are still, transit lines that need those connections too. Yep.
Yeah, I'm just curious how LinkUS arrived on the 0.5% sales tax as the funding source, especially considering that it's a regressive tax.
Good question. And Kim wants this.
All taxes are regressive taxes, but sales tax is what transit authorities in the state of Ohio use. And there actually are ORC, Ohio Revised Code legislation on revenues that come to transit authorities, and it is sales tax. And there's a limit according to the state law. The most a community can ask is like 1%, or I'm not going to go into the whole equation. 1% is the most a transit authority can ask from the community. Therefore, those are the revenue sources available to a transit authority. If particular municipalities or the State Department of Transportation wish to fund further, they have every right to do that. But that's what the transit authority has to rely on. Thank you. It's a good question.
Yeah, how, I guess, cooperative has ODOT been with using some of their funding for public transit, seeing as they just spent $1.1 billion on one highway interchange?
I think saying that historically Ohio is not a gung-ho transit state is probably pretty accurate, but ODOT has come a long ways, even in the last 4 or 5 years. We have really good partners inside of the Ohio Department of Transportation who are really keeping close tabs on this, and they're very interested in this whole huge program, not the project. And they're also hearing from the public. They do an updated overall transportation listening session for the state every 4 years. They're hearing a lot of public comments, both in the cities and in the rural areas, that people need more options than just driving. And so they're hearing that loud and clear. They opened up another funding opportunity for transit authorities just this past year. It's a workforce specific grant. So it's really to get people to work. That's been really beneficial for very specific projects. And so it seems to be a change.
Yeah, to add that too. So yes, ODOT primarily road building entity. Sure. But they have been moving in a direction. I will urge everyone to, help them move a little bit more. But, they are, like you said, a willing and good partner with us. They also have another major, it's literally called the Major New Construction Program. It's typically, they have a whole nother body that reviews giant projects, all the stuff that's happening downtown. That would be for that program. So there's billions of dollars of road projects all across the state are fighting for construction, actually just project funding, period, for this. COTA actually applied last year to do the same thing, to actually build West Broad. And so track that body that oversees that evaluated it and said, you know what, this is actually a good investment. It's a good investment to reduce congestion and promote economic development and activity. And so they awarded $15 million to help construct West Broad, which it's not $150 million, not $1.5 billion, but that's probably, I think, the second or third time that body in the last decade plus has given money to a transit project. Only second time was Cleveland. Yeah.
Will the CMAX corridor be getting any enhancements as like part of like all the BRT routes that are coming? And how does ridership on the Cleveland Avenue corridor compare to, say, I don't know, the Northwest corridor or East Main West Broad?
Good question. I'm giving it to Zach.
Yeah, so for those that may be familiar, the CMAX we rolled out in I think 2018. It's sort of BRT light, has some of the features that we're looking to do for these corridors, but it was a $50 million project back in 2018, and these are up to $400 million project. The biggest piece being those dedicated lanes. That being said, some of the improvements that we did make on the CMAX corridor has increased ridership. We hope that 45%, we can use some of that to build upon that, and over time incrementally add some of those changes, like looking at the vehicles. Right now the vehicles are 40 feet, but can we add articulated buses to the corridor? In terms of ridership, Cleveland Avenue still is one of our highest ridership corridors. Looking at comparing it to the line 2 and the line 10 for East Main and West Broad. We go through a modeling process, not to get too in the weeds, but we do anticipate ridership increasing on West Broad and East Main with the significant investment for these corridors.
Why not? Yep.
All right. It was mentioned that housing growth will be developed around these corridors, especially Northwestern Broad Corridor. What type of housing development is expected to project in that area? Is it going to be low density type housing, or is it going to be a higher density? And is there going to be commercial development in those regions, since it was mainly mentioned that it would be residential? Would these zones maybe even be mixed use?
Yes, but to explain further.
That is a very good question. I'm going to hand it to Charles in just a second. So we worked with a whole team for the last 9 months or so to develop an equitable transit-oriented development action plan. Very close collaboration between especially the city of Columbus and COTA and some of our economic development partners in the region. And the question was asked, how can we have more density, mixed use, dense development around these stations? And dense in Ohio, central Ohio, may be a little different than dense in like Toronto, right? Where they're tearing down 8-story buildings to build 40-story buildings. We would love to have some 8-story buildings, mixed use around these transit. So I'm going to give kudos to the city's new zoning code, which Charles is going to talk about. And I also want to give kudos to the team. We do have an ETOD action plan draft that'll go online here shortly on the LinkUsColumbus.com website. And it's focusing on policies and incentive packages to really promote exactly what you were talking about. All types of housing, definitely mixed use and dense.
Yeah, I mean, she said everything. I think for you, the intentionality behind all that. So even at that table was the Affordable Housing Trust, who is set out the goal to figure out how do we look at affordable housing as a region. But along with that, it has always been the intentional look at, as we build this, what are the other components that have to be built along with this to look at that equity. So when we brainstorm on, or when I call it brainstorming, planning, and that intentional, is no secret that this came out with zoning. We were a little bit before zoning came, but we recognize that, hey, there are a lot of obstacles in city development that are blocking us. Zoning laws were one of them. How do we look at a zoning law that actually has built-in incentives for, to be able to build? So when you look at, people don't realize the number one issue of development in Columbus, or maybe one or two, parking, and it's, can I get a parking variance? That is a 7-month, and most developers are telling us that. So now we're looking at it going a step further than just looking at, we got zoning, but as a city, how do we be intentional in these areas to make sure that people, you look at those little marks that, 5 to 10 years, 10, 15 years, that's going to be replaced, not with those marks, but additional ones that I think are going to show, like, hey, this early childhood center that was intentionally built to be on that, this job hub, this, where do I go to get groceries and things like that. So all of those thought process in this is part of the equity plan. And like I said, the draft is out. And when that's out, I think people will realize that we really stopped and looked at the holistic view of what this is. This is not just better busing. This is not more sidewalks. This is not more, opportunities, because, we love intel. But if you can't get the intel, how much does the benefit is that? And so this is an equitable look, holistic look on really uplifting life for folks. So hopefully that helps.
One more thing, because I always like to point out, when we win money, COTA was awarded a $1.4 million transit-oriented development pilot program federal grant to be able to take some of these stations and not just say, okay, well, it could be built here, but like, what is the market do a market analysis and to know what is the demand, what could be built, and basically do a lot of the legwork up front to promote that development, to show what could be successful here, how many more jobs could be put in, this quarter, how many more, housing units, what kinds of housing units, depending on what the station is too. So that was for West Broad. They also applied for East Main, that second BRT corridor. So we'll see what that comes in the future.
So I saw some preliminary plans for the Northwest corridor, and it looked like we were just like adding BRT lanes and not actually kind of like widening the road to accommodate it, which I'd imagine would involve like very expensive right-of-way takes. And so I'm just curious, like, if that's still the primary plan that y'all are looking at, and also just in general, how willing and able LinkUS is to take space away from cars, to avoid like widening roads to accommodate BRT.
Ask the hard questions. Who wants this?
Yeah, the Northwest quarter right now is like in 5% design. So we have years still to get to the final design phase. Working with City of Columbus and ODOT traffic engineers to figure out what makes the most sense. How can we make it easy for everybody to get through? I mean, obviously, as COTA, we want to make sure the bus is moving efficiently through the corridor. So that being said, West Broad and East Main a little bit further in design, and most of the dedicated lanes are repurposing existing right-of-way and existing pavement. So, restriping and adding those dedicated lanes. If you're familiar with the West Broad corridor right now, the speed limits are 35 miles per hour. Majority of the segment, but people can go 50 miles per hour because it's the way the road is designed. So we're hoping that by repurposing that middle lane to transit, you can slow people down, make it more walkable, make it safer for everybody.
Anybody else? Anything online, Nikki? Oh, you can be last.
So I had class until 3:55, so I wasn't able to attend like the first half. But I'm just wondering, is it possible for like say BRT to exist along the crowded high street corridor. If that could happen, that'd be great. But I could definitely see why that would absolutely drive people insane and why they would absolutely hate it. As we all know, people really want their parking. But I still can't help wonder what would if BRT were to exist along the high street corridor, what would that be like?
Do you want to be?
All right. I guess to touch on that, the North Corridor has been studied for decades. It is our most dense corridor in the region. One of those corridors that Kim showed that was green identified. North Corridor, it could be High Street, it could be something else if the funding's available. But we know High Street is challenging today, right? There's a lot of High Street has a lot of things. It has parking, it has no bike facilities. With the corridors that we're studying, there's a lot more room for redevelopment and change to happen. We know the infrastructure is there. And my goal is that the Northwest Corridor, if you utilize the Northwest Corridor, you can get on the station and you can get to downtown just as quick as you could on High Street in the future. We'll see what happens with the infrastructure that we have, but trying to think of parallel routes that we can enhance there. Kim?
Oh, sorry, a good wrap-up question. So if you're successful in November, what is the time frame and what are the immediate next steps?
November 6th, we go take a long nap.
Yeah.
November 7th.
Right. So specifically for the transit supportive infrastructure items, funding would come in 2025, and you would start to see funding being awarded to those 83 projects in 2026. For the rapid transit corridors, these are long projects working with the FTA's program. We've been working on them for several years. With the West Broad corridor, we're hoping to wrap up final design in 2025 and then begin construction in later 2025, depending on milestones and what can happen with the FTA. Construction would take about 2 or 3 years. We would hope to service to begin the late 2028, East Main 2029, and then the Northwest Corridor initial segment hoping like 2030, 2031. Sure, yeah.
If I want to make my voice heard on this matter, what should I be looking for on the ballot?
So on the ballot, COTA is going to be on the ballot and it will be issue 47. And so look for issue 47. Yes, issue 47. So thank you for that question. We really do appreciate it. And I'm Gail Saunders and I work with this whole team for LinkUS. So turn it over to Hart.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you, COTA, Borpsey, City of Columbus team. Fantastic. Great presentation. I also want to thank our audience here for great questions. It's always great having planning students. So let's applause to you guys. So remember, issue 47, it's at the bottom. So make sure you don't get voter fatigue. Go all the way through all the ballot initiatives, get down to 47. And either way, make sure you vote on November 5th. That's very important. So hope we have a success story to talk about on November 6th. Thank you everyone for being here today and good luck.